Well, the city of Cleveland is not generally accustomed to going into Pittsburgh and dominating, but that's what the Guardians have done the first 2 games to the Pirates as they continue to make the lead up to the trade deadline look as confusing as possible. Meanwhile, Josh Naylor is either going to take down the Roberto Clemente bridge or get one named after him as he fights the MLB for not being named an all-star after his big performances to start the series in Pittsburgh.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you could win 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app, use the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms, conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Justin, how do you respond to 21 runs? We haven't had an output like this in all season, and a chance for this second sweep of the year. There's only been the one. Can this team, after getting swept, turn around and do the same? It always feels like they stumble in these situations. Will they stumble tomorrow?
No, I think you should bet on Josh Naylor for Sleeper on Wednesday. I think they will do just fine. I don't know. Is it Rich Hill on Wednesday? Is it Rich Hill?
Yes, it's Rich Hill.
Well, look, Josh Naylor is hitting lefties now. He's hitting fastballs. He's hitting curveballs. Just let Josh Naylor put the team on his back and carry them home from Pittsburgh or to face the Phillies this weekend and continue to make this trade deadline look as confusing as possible.
Yeah, currently Seattle is winning 3-2 in the second. Both teams got on the board. So with Cleveland's 2 wins and then the loss yesterday, we're at what, a 1-game?
1.5, Twins. I believe. I think it's 1.5.
It was 2.5.
It's down to 1 right now.
1.5. So it's 1. And I'll get down to either a half or go back to 1.5, depending on this Twins game.
Guardians back to 500 if they win the finale and sweep the Pirates.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, but it's like this is what this team has done to me. Okay, like where I have like no faith. Like I'm like, yeah, but they just don't do that. Like I know there are gonna be people who's like, oh, you shouldn't act that way. But it's been hard, and I've seen in our comments, Jake, one of our everydayers, is like, this team. It's just this team, and I'm like, no, I get it. I understand what you're saying,
back
dude.
And forth, yeah.
It just feels like every time you start to get excited, they punch you in the gut. And but let's not focus on that. Like, this was a fun game. 2 home runs by Josh Naylor. He's at one point in time when he got his the second home run in this game, I believe at that point he was second in the big leagues in RBIs. He's had 9 in the last 2 days. RBIs are a junk stat. That's more indicative of Stephen Kwan's had a great 2 days. Hitting in front of him than anything else, but it's still interesting, right? It's still something fun to talk about. It's not really a predictive thing, but it's interesting to sit there and look at it. And this was a game where everybody got a hit except for Brennan and Bo Naylor, who, by the way, I pulled up the stats, are the Guardians' worst hitters in the last 30 days. Since from June 18th to July 18th, those are the 2 guys at the bottom. Hardest hit ball in this one belonged to Carlos Santana. We'll talk about
we're talking about Carlos Santana.
And we're gonna get to Los later in the show. If you heard about it, if you listened to it, Connor Joe had the farthest home run. I was kind of surprised by that. And I don't know, watching all those, I thought Josh Bell's would be, but Josh Bell didn't even have the longest hit one of any of the Cleveland guys. Tim Herron had the 2 biggest velocities, and I also want to mention that because in the last month, he's had the 3rd best FIP on this team. He's averaging 11 strikeouts per 9 and under 2 walks per 9. This bullpen, I know it's had its ups and downs, but again, when we talked about that Cincinnati Reds trade yesterday, if you missed it, go check out yesterday's show. This team has bullpen depth. Now, I'm not saying trade Herron because he's young, he's under control, and he has value, but if you have someone who's a little bit older, if you want to talk a Morgan or an Aniel to help you get someone like Spencer Steer, who we talked about yesterday, like, this is why you feel maybe a little more comfortable getting him, making that deal, because someone like Tim Herron stepping up, or 99, you could 99,
because like right now
I don't know what his trade value is. Yeah, and by the way, Michael Kelly actually, it's a very small sample size, but he has the lowest FIP of any pitcher in Cleveland in the last month. But it's all of 3 innings, I think. But yeah,
the fact they didn't send down Michael Kelly to bring back Logan Allen, they sent down Cody Morris, who we'll talk about in the next segment a little bit. But the fact that I thought for sure, like, they'll just send down Michael Kelly and that'll be the end of him. They bypassed 99 to bring out Michael Kelly when they were in Texas and they needed a bullpen arm, and they didn't send him down again. So they must like him a little bit. And I don't know.
think they do like him a little bit.
I think you can find someone interested enough to see what happens with 99 if you're pairing him with somebody to get a prospect. I think there's Arizona. We talked about Arizona before the season even started, needing a bullpen arm, right? So I think that's still a possibility out there. You're right. So De Los Santos is a little older. He's been a nice story. If someone out there is going to give you some capital for him, and look, Trevor Stephan has been kind of losing his way recently. Wasn't fantastic tonight. He gave 2 singles, but he got 3 swings and missed on the fastball, and he was up to 97. So that's positive movement.
People are going to be so mad at me for that. They're talking over you. On the broadcast tonight, I was trying to remember if it was, who brought it up, but talked about how a year ago he lost that splitter and had to go back to his slider, and they're kind of working on that it's reminiscent of what happened a year ago. And I thought, oh, that's a good insight. That's, it's a good statement.
Well, he's not going anywhere because he's got I mean, I mean, he's getting paid a lot of money, but they're not trading him.
But, I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, I do have to say, of the guys who have been up here and pitched a lot, the lowest FIP, best predictive stat is Nick Sandlin. Nick Sandlin, people still talk about sending down. Nick Sandlin's bloody fantastic. Let's take a moment and appreciate how good Nick Sandlin's been. He's not going anywhere. It is kind of funny, though, at the same time, we talked about old man Aniel De Los Santos at 28 years of age, or 27 and 6 months. He's not even 28 yet, but that's how young this pen is. But it's just, if you're curious, the guys in the pen that FIP doesn't like are Gavin Williams kind of stands out. That's the guy where the FIP is not as and Xavier Curry and Trevor Stephan are your 3 lows. But yeah, no, to go back to the highs, Logan Allen, no hitter into the 5th, right? That was the only hit he gave up, was in the 5th, was it not?
Yeah, I'm not sure what inning the Pirates had their first hit, but he only walked 1 batter. He threw 71 pitches in 5 innings, so a little more
swings and misses.
Yeah, the slider was pretty good, or I should say the changeup was pretty good for him. Sleeper was fine. 11 foul balls off the fastball. That's like kind of the concern for him, is there's a lot of foul balls in that fastball. So he's got to spot it just right, or he's got to maybe cut into his fastball usage a little bit more, which is hard to do. And maybe he has to throw the cutter a little more to keep guys off the fastball. He did throw 9 cutters tonight, and didn't know this either, but he had food poisoning last week too. So he had pitched 3 innings and threw like 50 some odd pitches in Columbus. His timeout start to cut a break for him. So he's, they were limiting his innings again tonight, limiting his pitches to 77. So coming off of a week where you had food poisoning and you didn't throw a lot of pitches, and again, it's the Pirates, but good first start back for Logan Allen and a step in the right direction.
Now, I know not every hard hit ball is a hit. That's not how baseball works. Sometimes you have hard hit outs, but I did think it was interesting. Mitch Keller gave up 10 hard hits in this game, 10, and he had 10 hits. Now, again, not every single one of those. I guarantee Miles Straw was not a hard hit ball, the single that he had in the first, but still, it's for Mitch Keller, who was the starter in the All-Star. I don't watch the All-Star game. Was he the starter? Did I hear that during the broadcast? Was Mitch Keller the starter of the All-Star game?
No, it was Zach Gallen.
Okay. Zach. Okay. Oh, Gallen. I'm like, who's Zach Allen? I was like, man, I really missed baseball this year. Who's Zach Allen?
Yeah,
I don't know what Zach Allen. Zach Gallen. But still, I mean, he's an all-star pitcher. He's had an exceptional season, and Cleveland took him to the shed in a way that I don't know any team has done this year. Of course, it'd be Cleveland that does that.
Right. Yeah, and then that's the best pitcher they'll see in the series. You've got Rich Hill in the finale, I think, tomorrow or on Wednesday. So,
again, like the only person in baseball older than me. So, Rich Hill is he's someone I'm going to be. I'm hoping that they beat him, but don't beat him too bad. We want Rich Hill to keep pitching because I want that guy. The Jamie Moyer of this generation. I want him out there making me feel not quite as old.
Yeah, well, he is a lefty who's a soft tosser, so you never know, which means Andres Gimenez will be out of the lineup, and Gabby Arias will be in, and Tyler Freeman will be in, which is good. And
listening to the Texas Rangers talking about how, like the broadcast being like, hey, Andres Gimenez is one of those lefties who really hits lefties well, and they compared him to someone on Texas, and I'm blanking now. Maybe, I don't think it was Adulcis. I think Adulcis
was it Nate Lowe?
It might have been Nate Lowe, who hits lefties well as well. But it's like to have the announcers knowing this, and yet us being like, yeah, he'll either not hit or hit 7th. Look at his career numbers. I don't know if we did this on the air, but we did an off the air thing where we looked at his numbers and like, holy crud. Much like Stephen Kwan, this year, Stephen Kwan is killing lefties, struggling more against righties.
Right.
Jimenez has done this in the big leagues. Like outside of his weird 2021 season when he was with the Mets last year and this year, he has crushed lefties much better than righties. Like he hits lefties well. Not only should he be in every day against lefties, he should be up.
I tweeted earlier tonight too. I said, "Boy, the Guardians keep this up, they'll have to get Gabby Arias and Tyler Freeman into the game at the same time." And they did. They both finished the game. They didn't get at bat, but they both finished the game at the same time. Like, wow. You really have to work hard and score a lot of runs to get those two in the game at the same time.
Yeah,
because the Reds. Did you see the comment from the Reds today too? Because a reporter did ask David Bell, "Hey, who's going to play?" Christian Encarnacion Strand hit a home run tonight, by the way, and he was asking, "How are you going to play all these guys?" He goes, "It's going to be a rotation. We have guys who can play different positions. We're going to rotate them in. It'll be a rotation." Imagine that.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
If we could just
figure out how to do that. I mean, it's just that Reds team
with that once.
It's one could make a case like today their DH is Jonathan India. You and I spent a lot of time like Jonathan India might be their worst hitter outside of whoever's catching. Like he's
got a 95 WRC plus, which
he's below league average, right? But it's like everyone else.
But not all 9 guys are going to be over league average in your line. Nobody.
I mean, typically no, but when you're bleeping Reds, like Encarnacion Strand, if he's the DH, everyone in that lineup is over a 100, and you have a guy who just doesn't have enough time outside of the catcher. Catcher is a problem. All those people who want us to trade for Tyler Stevenson have gotten very quiet now. Again, catching
he's not having a good year. I didn't see.
No, he's not. But that's the thing. Catching is weird. Like Gabriel Moreno, Alejandro Kirk. I'm blanking on the guy.
Moreno's been fine.
He's been hurt. But it's like almost everyone outside of Sean Murphy kind of folded. Catching
Dalton Varsho I don't know what Dalton Varsho's doing now, but I have a bunch of him in my fantasy teams, and he was terrible to start the year. I will confirm that. Speaking of guys I thought would be fantasy options, maybe this guy will be a fantasy option for you coming up soon. We'll talk about Cody Morris in just a second.
I love it when we have a new sponsor, and we have one in Dave. And Dave is a banking app, and it's a banking app that's there to help you out. It gives you extra money to buy groceries, fill your tank, get your car repaired, and catch up on bills. It's the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less, no credit check, no late fee. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and settle up later. You can even build a credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people download the Dave app that makes finances easier. And my knowledge of Dave was that's originally what it was. It was an app to help you with finances, to help you balance your budget and know where money is going. So if that sounds like something that'd be useful to you, then you want to download Dave today at dave.com/lockdown/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. You can get up to $500 in less than 5 minutes. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. And it's more than just that. Like I said, you can use it to help you with balancing your budget. So check out Dave.
Guardians Pirates in their finale on Wednesday. I believe that is still a night game for the Guardians. It is, yes. Oh, it's a 12:35 game actually. So when you're looking for listening to the game on the radio in the afternoon, listen on your Sirius XM app. Search Guardians. That is going to be Savali and Rich Hill. We talked about Savali being a trade target. So the Guardians are going to send, or they already did send, Cody Morris back to AAA, and Zach Miles Athletic said they are. So this isn't even a guarantee yet, but they are kicking around the idea of stretching out Morris to about 50 to 75 pitches. So that gives you about 3 or 4 innings if all things go well for him. So I would guess that if they go with that option, the next time that spot comes up is on Friday, but they have an off day Thursday, so they don't need it necessarily. They can juggle things and they can go back to Williams on Friday, which that's the complicated thing with this, right? Is because you're trying to be careful with Bybee and Williams and now Allen again with their innings or their pitch counts and whatever. And because of the injury to Shane Bieber, because how they're handling this spot in the rotation for the time being until they get more news or they figure out what they're doing next, they're gonna not take advantage of the off day Thursday, and they're just gonna go with the 4-man rotation. So the spot they'll need a fifth starter again come Wednesday or Tuesday next week, I should say. Let's see, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So Tuesday they'll need a fifth starter again. So whenever this comes back up, I don't know that Morris, now that Morris is down, he has to be down for 15 days unless there's an injury. So
he can't be back to help before.
He is not an option.
Yeah,
he is not an option again for this next time up in the spot. So I don't know how they're going to fill it in the meantime. But if that's an option for them, that tells me that, when he is eligible to come back, he probably will be the guy. And that also means that won't be Shane Bieber because he's obviously not pitching for 2 weeks. So,
and to go back to it, it's like the first time they sent Cody Morris down, I think was right after the whole Bieber injury was announced, or maybe it was someone else, or maybe it was Contrails. And then I was like, maybe they're going to stretch him out. That's why I was kind of surprised when he came back so quickly. This has always been logical because who's already on the 40-man? It's him and Cantillo and Gaddis. If they need a guy in a pinch, that's been Gaddis this year. So I wouldn't be shocked if that's the plan. His last start wasn't bad in AAA. Try to line him up. And again, don't scout those AAA numbers because that park is terrible for pitching. It's not really ideal for pitching development either. I do want to point something else out. A lot of people have been like either, on the comments below or tweeting at me like, hey, trade Bieber and Savale. I just want to do a quick rule clarification. You can't trade a hurt player. That's against the CBA. You have to have.
Can't you though? If the other team agrees to it, right?
No, commissioner has to approve, and the commissioner typically doesn't approve. That's why there was a big to-do when the Guardians acquired Josh Donaldson, and he technically wasn't healthy because technically that's not allowed. So the commissioner has to approve it, and more they have said no to those situations. So you cannot actually trade a hurt player without the commissioner's approval. Doesn't matter what the player wants; it has to be the commissioner's approval.
Well, I was going to say not the player, but if the team says, well, we see the medicals, we're okay with it. But that trade ruined the waiver deadline deal too. That was the last year of that, I think they got rid of it the next year. So there was no longer any waiver trades. And that sucks because you want to know what, with the extra wild cards they have now in the first round bye, it's like the we need a second All-Star game just for Jeff's excitement. But the trading deadline should be like August 10th or something. Like you need at least another 2 weeks, I feel like, with the way everything's set up now. So that trade really did ruin it for this whole waiver thing. The waiver deadline, I will be honest, it was pretty sketchy, and there was all kinds of goofy stuff that was happening, and that was obviously the straw that broke the camel's back.
I was gonna go look and see. I felt like maybe that's when that terrible Kevin Seitzer deal happened. Like if this hadn't, So
right,
yes. So I wish it had been gotten rid of years ago because that Kevin Seitzer, Guardians traded for Kevin Seitzer August 31st, 1996, giving up Jeremy Burnitz. That's one of those terrible 90s deals that they kept making with Milwaukee. I was very close to an immaculate grid today. Side note, very disappointed in myself. But Burnitz would leave and then hit 27, 38, 33, 31, and 34 home runs over the next 5 years. They got a month of Seitzer who was dog poop by that point in time. So if only they had gotten rid of that rule earlier, is my point.
Yeah, so bad. Yeah, John Hart, all those great trades. Speaking of the immaculate grid, you're talking about the Brewers trades. Richie Sexson could have filled in a lot of grids yesterday. Actually, my wife tried to compile an immaculate grid of all ex-Indians, and she came one short. She had to use Brett Boone for the Mariners one because Aaron Boone there was no ex-Mariners Silver Slugger. I think that
I could not do the Brewers ones were messing me up. I got to be honest. I could not think of like a Yankees
Bob Wickman. Rob Wickman.
I couldn't think of a Yankees, and then
Richie Sexson could have filled in multiple today.
I missed two. I missed the Yankees, Brewers, and then I missed the Phillies, Marlins, which I felt really dumb when afterwards I was like, "Oh, Juan Segura, you moron!" By the way, Juan Segura was also with Seattle, and maybe also with Milwaukee. Like he's been in enough places. You could have almost done like a Juan Segura grid, but yeah.
My Marlins Phillies one was the best of the day. It was Paul Quantrill, not Cal. Paul.
And then my really annoying one was I had forgotten that Nelson Cruz had played with Seattle. I'm like, I know he was with Milwaukee. Was he with Seattle? Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, he was with Seattle for multiple All-Star years.
Also Richie Sexson grid right there. Richie Sexton could have been like on 4 grids today.
Yeah, he could
all
have.
over the
That was the
place.
other one because I went and I looked at my misses. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. So yeah, Cody Morris not an option for the next time this rotation spot comes around. I would like to see him stretched out though, if they can get four innings out of him. And I think when he comes back, like we talked about yesterday, you can do Morris for 4, and then Curry for 2 or 3, and then figure it out from there.
You and I both discussed him as a top 10 prospect before his injury. He looked really good last year when given chances to start. I think FIP actually thought, FIP projected him to have like the best strikeout rate of anyone on this team, and predicted
before the rookies came up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In this offseason before the injuries and everything else, like it predicted him to be their second most effective starter, maybe third most effective starter. So don't view this as like a fallback. This is a good choice. Again, we have no idea if he can hold up. The injuries are such a concern with him, but it's logical. And in my opinion, it's the right call to stretch him out and try to make him a starter.
It is. I'll be curious to see who they go to in the next time this comes up. Like you said, Gaddis for one starter through, and then maybe go back to Morris if they feel he's stretched out enough to go the next time out. I don't know how long it'll take to do this, but he'll at least get 2 turns down there. 15 days, that would might get him 3 turns through, maybe, depending on how the off days line up. So we'll see about that next time that comes around. Josh Naylor, trying to get a bridge renamed after him in Pittsburgh, or just make the fans want to jump into the river behind the stadium after the last 2 days. We're going to talk about Josh Naylor in just a second. You should take Josh Naylor for your sleeper choices tomorrow, because he is on a tear right now. Sleeper is a daily fantasy app. You think if you can play against, or you can pick individual players, you don't have to worry about the outcomes. You don't have to worry about, parlays, things like that. You can just worry about individual performances, swing for the fences, get up to 100 times payouts, 100 times payout. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players and select some categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, more. So take Josh Naylor on Wednesday to hit 2 more home runs to see if he can continue his recent tear. So get some big payouts on those. Use promo code LOCKDOWN, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. $12:35 Wednesday, Guardians Pirates rubber match. Guardians go for the sweep. Listen to the game while you're at lunch after you listen to Locked On Guardians by searching Guardians on your SiriusXM app. All right, Jeff. We talked about I think off air yesterday. I don't think we talked about it on air, did we?
No, it was off air.
Yeah. So I kind of pitched. I said, and look, he's on a hot streak, so we have to be careful of this and not say like, oh, every time a player does good, you should sign him to an extension. Let's put that context out there first, I think is fair. But Josh Naylor is having a heck of a summer. I mean, we knew the data said back in April when the numbers were poor that he was getting unlucky and he was due for a reversal in fortune. And that reversal of fortune came in May, 890 OPS. The reversal of fortune continued in June, 923 OPS. And in July so far, he is hitting 395, 435, 698 with 3 home runs, giving him 15 for the year. So summer has been good to Josh Naylor. Everything this year looks like it's trending in the right direction, right? You've got best exit velocities of his career, best launch angle of his career. By best launch angle, we mean he is hitting the most optimal amount of balls off the ground that he has in his career. He is running a career high line drive rate, a career low ground ball rate, a career high fly ball rate, which is what you want from a hitter with power like Naylor, because in the past he was hitting a lot of 110 mile an hour ground balls. That does no good for a guy like Josh Naylor because he doesn't run well, even though he has 6 steals. Only 4 less than Miles Straw, by the way. So things are all trending in the right direction for him. And even though he had that disastrous day at Wrigley Field last month, outs above average for him this year, 88th percentile. The only thing you really can ding him for right now is the chase rate's not good, but he doesn't strike out a lot because he makes contact with some of those balls. And the walk rate isn't good because he chases a lot of those balls and he doesn't run. Is it time to at least start having the conversation about what a Josh Naylor extension looks like for next year? Because this is my only thing. And I have more stats I want to point out too about his improvement. But the Guardians do not have a single solitary soul that feels trustworthy at first base over the next couple of years in the minors. I know people will say, "Oh, John Noel," but John Noel ain't ready right now, and maybe he'll get better next year, maybe. But right now, you cannot sit here and say John Noel is a future answer until he turns things around. There is not a soul in that minor league system that I look at and I say that guy is your first baseman for the next 5 years after Josh Naylor. So at least they have to consider an extension, given what he's doing right now, and given there could be a giant black hole at first base if they don't. Until
I strongly disagree.
Yeah. That never happens. What? Wait a second. That's not.
So here's the thing. One, the Guardians aren't going to do it. When you look at the outside stats, especially right now, there's that degree of like he is on an unsustainable tear. I was talking about like hitters, what the pitchers have done in the last month. In the last month, he's got a 429 BABIP. In July, he had a BABIP over 400. That's just not going to happen. I'm not going to say like his half year numbers are an improvement. I think that is sustainable. I think that we have seen an improvement. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's closer to like a 122 runs created plus, a 825 OPS. The fact he was so ice cold, this is a positive regression to the mean. Like we're used to that being a negative. This is a positive version of this. Maybe even if you're lucky, his May data, where 138 on weighted runs created plus is where he can be. But June, July, he's just been, lucky and good. We see this with guys, and the reason, first off, it's first base. You can always trade or acquire. We talked about Spencer Steer on the show yesterday. Again, it's like it's not a hard position. Just about anyone can handle it as long as they're not hyper small. I know that's kind of the knock on the idea of like if Jose can't play third, where does he go? But hey, make a trade with the Reds. The two guys you're discussing are first basemen. It's a thing you can acquire. And then on a very basic level for me, he has 2 years left after this year. He would be a free agent in his late 20s as a first baseman who's had a massive leg injury that could affect his 30s, and as a guy who doesn't stay healthy. He's always dinged up a few times a year. And he is a bigger dude, which I say as a bigger dude, but that is also more pressure and stress on your knees and legs. So that is going to affect things. So when I look at it and I say the Guardians won't sign him, I also don't think he's going to want an extension for 4 years. Like, why would he give up 2 years of free agency into age 30 when he can just be a free agent in 2 years? So I think the ship kind of sailed. Like, you either need to get to him a year or two ago, or you got to give him a contract that goes through his age 32 year. And I don't think they're willing to do that. And if you look at someone like Brandon Belt, you look at, his comp might be Josh Bell in terms of like, some similar age level stuff. So I just, for me, it's positional value. It's it is like overall body health, and he's going to want 6 years on an extension. The Guardians aren't going to want to give that. He has no reason to take 4 years. He's just not in the sweet spot for an extension anymore.
So you're just saying they not that they shouldn't extend him, but they're not going to based on the current situation and how things are playing out right now.
Yeah, but it's also like, I wouldn't give him a 6-year extension.
I'm not saying you should, no.
But I don't think he's going to take anything other than like a 6-year extension. So I think it's also a no, because it's like, nor should he. Like, he is in a situation, he would be dumb to take a 4-year contract. He would be dumb. Like,
yeah, he would be, if he took a 4-year contract, he's got 2 years left. So you're buying out 2 years of arbitration and then 2 years of free agency.
29 and 30 season. I just think age-wise, contract years-wise, it doesn't match up.
Yeah, and he's having the kind of season too where if this keeps up, let's say he just goes on a heater here. Like, at the very worst, let's say he finishes July on this heater that he's in, because it's July 18th. There's only a week left, right? Handful of days left in July. Let's say he finishes July on this tear where he's hitting a 440 BABIP, whatever. He has this monster July, and then let's say August and September he is closer to his May production, which might be sustainable for him. that puts him on a path to get paid in arbitration this offseason. So you're right. Why would the Guardians would have to give him money this year comparable to what he'd get in arbitration to make that extension work? Because he right now looks like he's going to get paid very handsomely in arbitration, deservedly so. His numbers against lefties have ticked up. He's now an above average hitter against lefties. He is now hitting curveballs, which ate him up. Look, last year, Josh Naylor, slugging percentage on curveballs, 212. He threw a curveball to him, he was out. He wasn't doing anything. This year, 419 slugging percentage. He can hit the curveball out of the ballpark, or he can at least hammer it for a double. Sliders, don't throw him a slider anymore, and he kind of chewed those up last year too. Change everything. He's slugging over 400 in every pitch. So you can't throw him anything right now, and lefties aren't working against him. He is going to get paid this offseason. His agents will have all the arguments in arbitration to say he is going to get some serious money. And he's a Super 2 guy, correct? So he's got 4 years of arbitration. This is year 3 coming up, right?
Yeah, because he's had so many up and downs. Yeah, he's
going to get paid through arbitration. So you're right. It's going to be I'm not saying they're going to sign him to extension, but I'm saying if they do so, it'd be a very difficult situation. They have to overpay to get him, probably. You're right. And it is challenging to give a guy a 6-year deal. He'd go to his age 32 season. Like, I was looking at 6-year contracts for first baseman. So you've got not a lot of great examples of 6-year contracts for that. You have Jose Abreu from the White Sox. That was his original contract, I think.
Yeah, coming up from Cuba.
Yeah, he was a little bit older when he came up. So 668 could be right in Naylor's wheelhouse. You've got 572 with Brandon Belt with the Giants back in the day. Justin Morneau, who I don't think Justin Morneau is quite a similar player, but if you're talking about an extension, he got 680 back in 2014 or 2008. That's a lot of money, and it is risky to do that with first baseman. It is risky to do that with first baseman like Josh Naylor. But I will say this for Josh Naylor. He is blossomed into a complete hitter this year. He very clearly is the heart and soul of that team right now. He is kind of a leader in terms of energy and just the way he brings it every night. You can see he's exciting. He's fired up in the dugout. His teammates feed off that a little bit. There's a lot going on there with this guy and this team. And, I know it's, the storyline of the Naylor brothers, blah, 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 all that going on that people are excited about. I don't think that really matters in terms of how you build your team. You're trying to build the best team for the best money when you're the Guardians. But so I don't think that's going to factor in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they at least have talks. He only made $3.5 million this year in extension. 3.35 this year in arbitration. He is probably going to get like at least 8 through arbitration this year. He's going to get a significant raise
if he keeps it up. But the counter argument to all of this is, paying someone off a year with a high BABIP. We haven't seen that happen with this team with negative reaper. That's the Andres Jimenez story. The biggest bullet this team bit this offseason, however that expression goes, was Steven Kwan not signing an extension. Like with his up and down year, you have to be very careful of something like BABIP because his is. I mean, let's see. His last year. Is this still his numbers in front of me? Yeah, his last year was 268. He's rocking a 332 this year. So there's a lot of room for regression right now, and maybe it is a higher thing. But typically, I mean, his best season ever was 302. You're talking about a guy who, even if you count this year, his career BABIP is 293, puts him 40 points above his average. 40 points above his average would knock him from a 310 to a 270. He's a career 266 hitter. Like, there's a lot of things that show you, yes, he's doing things better, and his slugging percentage is the best of his career, and that might stay up. But some of that batted ball data is likely to have some degree of regression. I'm not saying it's a pure 40.1, but I think Andres Jimenez and Steven Kwan showed us that, yeah, you do have to consider that. It's part of the game.
Speaking of, Andres Jimenez up to 97 WRC plus, Josh Bell up to 98. Those guys are creeping towards league average finally. And Guardians are very close. Oh, Steven Kwan is over league average now. Yeah. So if you take out, if you figure out minimums here, you got Naylor, Ramirez, you got Freeman and Fry who aren't going to qualify, but you got Bell and Kwan and Jimenez who are approaching league average, and Kwan's above league average, getting awfully close to having a bunch of league average bats in the lineup again.
And in the last month, Josh Naylor 203, Jose a 137, Jimenez and Kwan tied at a 113 weighted runs created plus in the last month. Yeah. And Jimenez Rosario at a 101. So it's like, they've had 5 guys in the last month being at least league average or better.
Yeah. Real quickly too, before we get out of here. So they're, on the pregame today, they're talking about Carlos Santana, and Santana says he wants to finish his career in Cleveland. Speaking of first baseman, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but let me just say I do love Carlos Santana because this is a guy that came up as a catcher, a bad first catcher. He was pushed, he got hurt, was pushed off the position by Yan Gomes. Didn't really have a home, didn't like to be the DH, tried to learn third base, was pretty bad. Let's just say it went bad.
He played outfield for them in some time. He
played some outfield. Yeah, he did a lot of everything. He grew up, the Cleveland had to do a lot of things, but Cleveland worked with him on kind of getting him on track in terms of, approach and focus, things he needed early in his career that he didn't really have. They really got his career on track after a while, and he found a positional home at first base. He became a guy who should have won a Gold Glove. Screw Eric Hosmer. He didn't deserve that Gold Glove. Carlos Santana did. I love that guy. He was a force. He was so underappreciated during his time here, and it wasn't until he came back after the year he was gone with the Phillies until fans really appreciated the consistent offensive player that Carlos Santana was and the good defender he was at first base. I don't know if there is a chance for him to finish his career here. He said he's got a couple years left. Maybe if Josh Naylor walks, they don't extend him, and Carlos Santana comes back to be the Jason Giambi in like 3 years. I don't know, but that would be kind of ironic.
Josh Bell for Carlos Santana on yesterday's show. Let's get it done.
Let Josh Bell go back to Pittsburgh and let Carlos go home. Yeah, sure.
They also mentioned on the show Carlos Carrasco would like to do it again if they decide to move Savale. I think adding Carrasco on a rental to eat some innings would be ideal for a team that's got a lot of young arms.
Let him come home too. I agree.
And two quick notes, draft wise, the Tugboat is in the dock, and listen, that is his Twitter name. So I am not Matt Wilkinson. His Twitter name is the Tugboat or something like that. Matt Wilkinson signed for about $50K under slot. I thought he might get less than that. So if they give someone $100,000, they believe in a possible MLB future. So we'll see what they can do with the JUCO 2 strikeout king and the other side of it. Jacob Bresnahan, the really interesting lefty from Oregon who had kind of a growth spurt, good athlete, paid 375, 225 over. So for those keeping track at home, 175 over slot with the two signings. So we know that Walters and Velasquez will be under because they've never given full slot to a first rounder. And Andrew Walters is a senior sign there, but we'll have to see where the money balances out because it feels like day 2 had some expensive, or day 3, I should say, had some expensive names.
Yeah, a lot of JUCO at high school. And for those who are wondering too, so what was it after the 10th round? Everything's at 150. So 100. Sign a guy to 150 after the 10th round, it doesn't count towards your bonus pool. Anything above the 150 counts against your bonus pool. So when Jeff says the 225 accounts against their bonus now because the first 150 it doesn't count against it, and after the 10th round for those slots. And then another quick note too, and make everybody end on a sour note. Chase DeLauter had to leave the game in Lake County Tuesday night. He turned his ankle a little bit after a base hit, and he limped off the field. And then it sounds like he left the game or left the clubhouse at the end of the night in a walking boot with crutches. So,
but not the same.
Luckily,
you said
yeah,
that,
luckily it was not the foot that he broke or the toe that he broke. So, hopefully, it's just an ankle sprain and he's sore, and it might just be a couple of days. So, sorry to get you out of here on that positive note. The Guardians are going to sweep the Pirates today. So, you're listening to this, take it to the bank. Put Josh Naylor, maybe Josh Bell did almost hit a ball into the river on Tuesday night. So put one of those guys in your sleeper app on
Jimenez
Wednesday.
Was like a foot from a home run as well in this one.
His one on Monday was a laser beam, and that one was a laser beam. Yeah. So maybe are the Guardians going to keep their offense up enough on Wednesday for Miles Straw at home run?
Yes, Miles Straw. No, don't.
Your sleeper app. Oh, think about that. Sleeper gives you 100 times your payout on that. If you put Miles Straw in there for a home run, think of the payout on sleeper. Just saying.
Don't waste your money.
Don't take any of my fantasy baseball advice. As my friends would tell you. I've run a fantasy baseball league for 10 years, and I have never won my own fantasy baseball league. So don't take my fantasy baseball advice.
But we, so tomorrow we'll talk about the show. We're going to talk about ourselves tomorrow. This is already a long episode, but we'll talk about the game, the outcome, preview the Phillies, and then no baseball Thursday, back Friday with a.
You know what Friday is? Farm Report Friday.
Yep. We're going to talk about that. Maybe have some more draft news, hopefully. But thank you all for listening, rating and reviewing, doing your part, downloading. It helps. Thank you to every single one of our everydayers out there. Make sure you're commenting, letting us know if I haven't talked about you. And we always end it. Go, go, Guardians, go. Sweep
the Pirates.